The officers have gray hairs.
Welcome to streets and urban.
Come on now. Good morning, everyone. Today is Thursday, March 13th. The time is 10:16 a.m. and we call the Mount Vernon Industrial Development Agency monthly meeting into order. Can you do the roll call?
Yes, Madam Chair. Thank you. Madam Chair,
Present.
Member Morton,
President.
Member Johnson,
Present.
Member Vanderpool,
Present.
Member McDonough.
Present.
We have a quorum, Chair.
We can proceed with the agenda.
Thank you. First matter is the approval of the February 13th, 2025 minutes.
I make a motion that we adopt the February 13th, 2025 minutes.
Is there a second?
I second it.
Any discussion?
There was some discussion about.
On the question, yeah.
On the question, yeah.
Yeah, so did we straighten those up? I know they. Done a youth order that they were sending.
Yeah, no, that was straightened out.
Yeah, it was resolved.
That was the issue about Dominican Matter.
That was the issue, but it was resolved.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Matter passes. Next, item agenda is the 2024 draft audit report. I believe, our, outside auditor, from RBT CPAs is on the Zoom call and prepared to present the draft audit.
Yes, I am.
Great, thank you. If you could.
Sure. If you guys have copies of the draft in front of you and you would like to follow along, I'm going to start on page 1, which is the auditor's report. This page contains the opinion letter, and the IDA did receive a clean opinion, which is the best opinion that can be received. If we skip to pages 4 and 5, that is what is called management's discussion and analysis. So this is just a brief summary of the information that's going to flow through the rest of the financial statement. And on page 5, there are currently known facts, decisions, and conditions. So that's kind of a summary of the activities of the IDA for the past year. So page 6 is the statement of net position. So you'll see that cash is at 2.136, which is up about $100,000 from last year, and that's just based on activity and timing. You can see that the IDA has started to collect some of the other receivables, so those are down $31,000 to the $207,000 that are presented there. Leases receivable are just income that is short-term there for $85,000. And there is a long-term portion of $730,000 down below. That's just related to the leases that the IDA currently holds. Capital assets are $1.2 million, and that's just a down $55,000 based on the current year's depreciation expense. So overall, the IDA's assets are up about $10,000 to $5,353,000. If we look down at the liabilities, the only matter of note that I'd like to bring up is that the due to other governments is down $705,000 from last year. So it's now $428,000. And that's related mostly to doing the second half pilot payments for 2023 were paid out in 2024. And all of the 2024 pilot payments were made in that year. So there is no carryover into 2025. So everything else is pretty consistent there. You'll see some pension liability, and that's a retirement liability due for the employee. So the total net position is $3.2 million, and it's up $808,000. And we'll get into why that $808,000 is there on the next page. Any questions on the statement of net position before I move forward?
None? No.
Okay, so page 7 shows the statements of revenues, expenses, and changes in net position. So for 2024, the IDA did have a $1 million closing fee from McQuestion, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. So that's why you'll see that big change there in the revenue. All the expenses remain consistent except for that consultant's fees, and that is based on the demolition of the building. So everything else remain consistent from 23 to 24 for the expenses. So you'll see that actually there is, at the end of the day, a change in net position of that 808,000. So that's essentially income. So your ending net position again is the 3.2. So it's a strong financial position for the IDA. Any questions on any of those items?
No?
Okay. So page 8 just shows how your cash went from last year's balance to this year's balance, and it's based on all of those items that I previously discussed. And then pages 9 through 16 are your notes to the financial statements and disclosures of the information that's presented on those schedules. There's no changes from last year, nothing new in those. So I don't think there's anything in particular that we would like to point out at this point. Then we get into the required supplemental information. This is just required based on the pension and retirement piece, and it breaks out previous year's activity, and it's supposed to go to 10 years. This was new for the IDA, so as those 10 years accumulate, this data will go those full 10 years. And then if we go to page 19 on, it's the supplemental data, so it shows all the details for the projects that the IDA currently has, the exemptions that they're receiving, and the full-time equivalent employees that they are required to maintain based on their agreements. And that goes on to page 25, I believe. And then we get into the internal controls letter, which you will see based on page 28, that the IDA no longer has any repeat findings. So this is the first year in many that there are no internal control findings and no compliance findings. And this will be the first year that they have filed on time with the ABO.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. I just want to say to the board, to the IDA staff, to those also who work in the controller's office that help to support some of this reporting, and our consultants. Appreciate the work done by everyone. As you just stated, and I'll restate it, that there are no findings. This is a very clean audit. I mean, you can't get any better than a clean audit. And an audit that comes in on time. And, I know it took us several years to kind of get here because we were clearing up findings from old financial systems and things of that nature. We're continuing to eat away at our receivables, which are clearly down millions of dollars from when we took over the IDA collectively in 2020. And good work. And thank you to our treasurer,
Well, I'll be honest, I mean, my job is a higher level, is administrative more, and kind of, I did the initial work of digging in deep to find out what it was. But really, I gotta say, the Raj really needs to be given credit for the day-to-day, because he really kind of makes sure that he's working directly with Julie and with RPT on the stuff. And of course, he and I created the internal control stuff, changed some of the stuff that needed to be done in the processes on it. But it's always good when you have at least a staff person who actually can do that work, right? As opposed to either contracting it out or having multiple people kind of come in at the end. The way in which it had been being done before is that a lot of that, as you know, when we took over, a lot of it had been by contracted out, and then people were temporary. And you can't have temporary folks doing it because you lose continuity and you lose system. So now that we have that, I think one of the best decisions we actually probably made related to this was to make sure that we identified an accountant that's in the controller's office to be focused on this, to be assigned this, to kind of do the accounting work right on it. So that's why a lot of it is that we are where we are. Right. So, those, it just bodes well for putting in the right fiscal systems in place and recognizing that it doesn't happen, it doesn't turn over overnight, it doesn't change overnight. It takes some time, and it has, I think we're in a good place here. and then we'll keep on with the rest of our agencies and even the city, and we'll eventually get there if we just keep on plugging at it.
And as you said, continuity has been key, right? Director Mack has been in her position. She's been able to work with Raj. She's been able to work with Julie. Raj is in that position. You are overseeing Raj, right? And so having people who have a historical understanding of some of the challenges and have been able to kind of really drill down deep and, peel back the layers that we have to deal with all the time and come to resolution has been good. So thank you to the entire team for making it happen.
I do want to also thank the auditors too, because there's been some changes too in Gatsby and things of the sort and what has to be reported, especially around pools and things of that sort too. And so, we've had to, on this side, it hasn't been as bad. On the city side, it's a whole lot more complicated to get that stuff done, but so thank you all because you've been able to help get the software that we needed to kind of do what we need to do the calculations on it. So, thanks.
Okay, well, thank you.
Great.
Next.
Move on, for the financial report.
Good segue.
Yes, good segue.
All right, so financial report, once again, not a lot of activity in the month of February. We are the pilots, when we look at income, 16,876. Fees and rental leases, 11,599. Little small interest, in that, 247. And then, bringing the total income of 28,722. Now that we're kind of in this position that we're in now, we may start to look at, ways in which we actually do kind of invest, money in places to help to that now. So, expenditures, the salary and benefits, $80,403. And that's the total expenses for that period. Net earnings, 20,319. When you look at the balance sheet, the bottom line is total assets, $3,693,022. That's of course broken up into the various accounts that we have, the escrow account, the money market account, the pilot account. Remember that the pilot account has 929,013, 013, which is the money that we now collect or we pay out at the next we pay the cycle. The operating account 933,400. And then we do have some receivables that are still out there that we are collecting, which usually trickle in about a month or two after the period. Usually this was paid in January. And so we will make sure that we still continue to assertively go after them for that. Liabilities, primarily is paying out pilots, and then a small amount of $4,600. Total liabilities $933,613. So at the end of the day, the closing cash balance is going to be $862,413. When you look at the administrative fees, you'll see that pretty much we are still just looking for those two to collect out, which is Dominican Magic and Regency Hospitality. But for the most part, all of the administrative fees have been received and collected. Same thing when you look at the pilots, we have few, actually 4 that we are that are unpaid, and we will then begin and go and collect things. So that's it. That's the financial report.
Thank you. Next business development report.
Yes.
Just a few updates. First, I'd like to remind everyone in February, I mentioned a job fair being coordinated with Westchester Putnam Career Center. Here's the flyer. It's scheduled for Thursday, April 9th. The date is accurate, April 9th. I'm not sure of the day of the week. And we have several Mount Vernon businesses who are participating, as well as Westchester County businesses. The Mount Vernon businesses that I am waiting for confirmation are Unitex, Ball Manufacturing, American Christmas, Montefiore. Those are the four that I am waiting to hear if they will participate in this job fair or not. I've reached out to several other smaller Mount Vernon businesses to participate, and so hopefully we'll have a good showing. As of right now, the flyer indicates that there are more than 50 businesses that will be participating. It will be over at the Mount Vernon Adult Center on First Street and Third Avenue. Time is between 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. So we're looking for a really good showing. Also, the day before, on April 8th, we will reconvene with Con Ed and the New York State Empire Development Corp. To put on a construction trade-focused information session to help our construction trade businesses become certified as, or receive information to become certified as MWBE organizations, or to become certified with Con Ed to work on whatever current project they have in the city of Mount Vernon and other projects throughout New York State that Con Ed is involved in. I did make contact with MTA over the last couple of days, waiting to get a confirmation of whether they will participate or not. I'm keeping my fingers crossed that they will, because that would be very exciting for me. I've worked very hard to make that contact and dig down to that particular person. Also, we have the trade unions who will be sending representatives. 32 BJ will be sending a representative down to speak that night. And that is, again, April 8th from 5:30 to 8 p.m.
Just for my knowledge, because I know one of the things that I said, and hopefully going forward, we'll include this in any type of pilot agreements that we have. Well, I think we have some things around local hiring. It would be great if some of the projects that we have going forward in the city would also be there that night, from companies who do plumbing to windows to electrical, in Mount Vernon, and some of the smaller trades. We'd like them to be able to come and find out more about those projects and how they can become subcontractors on those larger projects. And this is a great opportunity. It's kind of like a business to business opportunity, which I know this is what it is. The intention of this is business to business. So it would be great if we could invite, I guess I know two of the groups, 115 McQuestion, the Opal project, and then the El Judy and Simone project down on McQuestion as well.
So this invite went out to developers who have current projects approved. It went out to developers who are already on our rosters who have pilots with the IDA. It's gone out to
who are interested in pilots. They're not scheduled.
Well, no, those, I'm even the ones who currently have pilots.
Oh, okay.
So our Titus, for example, I sent it to anyone who has an existing pilot,
Okay.
anyone who's interested, anyone who just received one.
And then I would also send it to our market rate because,
So I also sent it out to our trade organizations, so Consolidated Plumbing. I sent it to Trusco. I sent it to our asphalt company. I sent it to our boiler company. So I sent it out to anyone who is affiliated with a construction trade. I didn't just focus on the individuals and the small mom and pop. I sent it out to everyone because I want a big showing. If we've got the state showing up here, and Con Ed and potentially MTA, we want to make sure that all of our businesses that could benefit from those contacts do benefit. And so, I've not only been sending email, I've been making phone calls and sending texts, for both of these. In addition to the mandate by the city council for business camera ordinance that was approved back in August of 2024 for those business types that are impacted by that ordinance. Those are the auto repair shops, the smoke shops, the cannabis shops, the bodegas, or anyone who received a license through New York State for liquor or for cannabis or for tobacco sale. Also reaching out to those folks to make sure that they are aware of this ordinance that was approved by the city council in August of 2024, and letting them know of a device that we have available to them through Motorola for streaming video into the police department. And so those are the two updates that I have. And any questions?
I just want to confirm, April 9th is a Wednesday.
Okay, so thank you.
That's what I was gonna say.
Yeah, and it's not on the flyer. They put it on the flyer and it's not there, but thank you for that.
Did you have the ribbon cutting thing?
So I've also, because, no, I didn't, but thanks for reminding me.
No, no problem.
One of my areas of responsibility is for scheduling ribbon cuttings for either new businesses or existing businesses that have done something, different to their space, or for an existing business that's been around and just has not ever celebrated being present here in the city of Mount Vernon. We tend to celebrate them by scheduling a ribbon cutting. And so it would be nice branding for the city of Mount Vernon if we had a ribbon that had the city's logo on it in the city's colors and such. So I've begun doing some research, and there's one, and I will send the image around to you guys, that cost approximately $350. But I'll send the image around and we can table that for next session in April.
Great. Now we have some old business, Madam Chair. First issue we have is Dominican Magic. As the board knows, and I think the public knows, Dominican Magic has been delinquent in their pilot payments. We have sent out the requisite letters under the pilot agreements and the project agreements to set the stage for a clawback on the benefits. I've been in contact, myself and Robin had, with the owner of Dominican Magic. He has indicated he was ill and had a tough time through COVID. So he then proposed an agreement to pay $20,000 up front now, which apparently was sent already by him, but not received by the city yet, the IDA yet. And then pay a number of money over the next 6 months back to the village, to the city IDA, excuse me. And then a balloon payment next March, so a year from now, to catch up on all the pilot payments and administrative fees he is owed. So there's been a lot of contact with him on that. Ultimately today, there's a resolution for you to consider on that interim agreement that would not then preclude you, if he doesn't pay, to either enforce that agreement or to claw back on the original documents, all the benefits on the project. He indicated his illness and his local business had suffered, but he is here local employing people. I know there was some discussion at the last, I think, 2 meetings about potentially that he was actively operating in Yonkers and not Mount Vernon. He has bunked that. There was a mistake in the YouTube video that referenced Yonkers. He has actually invited the IDA board to come and tour his facility, and I can set that up if we want. But that's sort of an update on where we are, and then ultimately you'll need to consider the proposal to enter into this sort of agreement over time to repay the pilot payments and make sure that he makes his pilot payment going forward. Okay. Next matter is Fun City.
Fun City is progressing, they're progressing through the permit process to occupy the vacant, well, the space that was vacated by Bed Bath and Beyond. So right now, we're on track for an opening July 2025.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Questions?
And just for those who are not aware, Fun City is,
Oh,
you know,
yeah, Fun City is a family entertainment center that has trampoline attractions and, games of chance and, pinball type activities. They have snacks available, not a full kitchen as Dave and Buster's has, but they do provide snacks, chips and popcorn and such. And
It'll be a unique business for Mount Vernon too. We don't really have anything, I understand, in Mount Vernon. It'll attract a lot of people, not only locally, but from Mount Vernon, but in the surrounding areas. Could be positive, people like to do paintball parties, things like that.
Yep.
So it could be a nice tourist attraction at the at Sanford Boulevard there. So it's an exciting thing, for the city and the idea.
They have other facilities in Westchester.
no, this will be the first in Westchester. They've got 3 other facilities in New York State, in northern New York State. Their first facility was in Syracuse. We were initially slated for number 2, but now we're number 4.
But they're not competing.
But they're right, but they're not in the southern tier of New York State. So it does make us a tourist attraction.
absolutely, it's a destination site.
Yes.
One of the things we spoke about yesterday is part of the initial economic development commission meeting was having those family entertainment centers and destination locations, those experiential type businesses that would draw people to come. And, yes, you have Dave and Buster's and, Chuck E. Cheese and things of that nature. So this is on the line without the extensive food, but on the line of an entertainment, family entertainment place. And I'm assuming you can probably book birthday parties and things of that nature there. When I was growing up, well, not when I was growing up, when my daughter was growing up, Chuck E. Cheese, Dave and Buster's. And so this is just,
This is a little more unique, I think.
yeah, it's a little more unique. It's a different iteration. So we're excited.
It's good.
Right.
The 229 South Fourth Avenue, matter?
So that is the unauthorized occupant at the IDA property that is located directly next door to the former or to the spot that was demolished in the summer and fall of 2024. And so we've made contact with the occupant. The hope is that the occupant will vacate based on administrative action that the IDA takes. We've scheduled a visit by the Department of Buildings for next Monday to obtain or to attempt to obtain entry to the space to conduct an inspection of the interior. There isn't any electricity at the location or water. And so we just want to get a look at the interior of the space.
And we're going through the legal machinations to remove this person either through potentially the inspection and or through, believe it or not, we may have to go through the landlord tenant issue, even though he's
But
not.
it would just be a holdup, correct? I mean, it is our property.
Yeah, it's our property and there's a sublease apparently, so we're starting the process to get them out both on that side, on the quote unquote squatter tenant side, or on if it's a safety issue. It's what the building department wants to make sure it's safe. So if it's unsafe in their eyes, we would then move forward
So
with
is
that.
this does he have a written sublease?
No,
No.
So it's a verbal
correct.
agreement. So, seems like a 30-day holdover would be.
Yeah, they do get some rights, but yeah, that process has begun. We've been working with Robin to do that, so stay tuned. But yes.
Well, actually, there's an email sent this morning. 10:24 from the building inspector.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay.
To suggest to you, copy. Basically, he's saying that he said to want to inform us about the unauthorized occupant. He has a name of person and a phone number.
Yeah, we do that.
About the scheduled inspection. He says to me, give me your full name and I will forward your information to my attorney to you to call. This matter will be resolved in Supreme Court. End quote. So the inspector is saying that based upon this, he is asking to recuse himself from it, pending on whatever the legal action. So it sounds like to me that we just going to need to take the next steps.
Yeah, looks like it.
Okay.
Yeah, they've started. Great.
Yeah. It sounds like he's not being doing.
Unfortunately.
We were hopeful.
That's that thing on the agenda.
Yeah. The Sentinel Development Project on Fourth Avenue there.
Mhm.
I know we've had some contact with their team. They were here 2 months ago, approximately, I think it was.
Yeah.
So we're still waiting for them to finalize a potential economic analysis. Victoria Stores has already looked at this from a 30,000-foot level and provided some information to us on that. But we're still, to me, the ball's in their court to provide more information to us before we can finalize the ground lease.
Well, okay, because that was really the question. I mean, it's kind of hard to do any type of real deep economic analysis until there is a decision around ground lease and things of that nature, so.
I emailed with them yesterday, Mayor, that they did the steps that I saw that they needed to do, and they responded they would get back to me.
Okay.
So we're in touch with them. Robin and I have been in touch with them over the last few weeks, so we will continue to do that. There's a few resolutions for you to consider. The first one is Resolution 3-2025-1, the authorizing the payment of invoices. And for some reason, I did not print that out. So does someone have that resolution?
I'm gonna get to that.
Here, these three resolutions. Vernon?
Yeah, I don't have the resolution for the payment of invoices. Julie, I don't know if you have that in front of you.
I
Or
do,
the-
yes.
The amounts, yeah. Would you just let the board know? That'd be great. Thank you.
Sure. The City of Mount Vernon Board of Water Supply, $1,479.53 for March healthcare premium.
Okay.
New York State Insurance Fund, there was a $10 policy balance that's due. And then to Harris Beach Mertha, $3,110.50 for February legal services and disbursements.
Is there a motion to approve this resolution? Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Matter passes. Next resolution, Resolution 3-2025-2, which is accepting the 2024 audit report as presented earlier in the meeting by the agency's outside auditors. Is there a motion to approve that audit? Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Matter passes. Final resolution is Resolution 3-2025-3. This would be the Dominican Magic Resolution, which would allow agreement to the payment proposals set forth in the resolution as submitted by the owner of Dominican Magic. And in that, ultimately, any agreement we enter into, we will protect the IDA's rights to go either enforce the agreement and or enforce any of the previous documentation they were required to meet, which would include any clawbacks of all the benefits. So there's a resolution for consideration, authorizing temporary payment schedule for past due pilot payments as set forth in the resolution. Is there a motion to approve that resolution? Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion on this?
So the payment, just to be clear, so the payment plan that they're gonna do is also at the same time, they're gonna stay current with their pilot payments.
They owe the, as part of the agreement, the payment will be the first half of the 2025 pilot payments, but there will be a second half payment that they'll have to meet. But yes.
That's in the schedule.
Yep.
And- Yeah, and we just wanted to also say for the record, and you know, for the public record, that this payment agreement does include penalties and interest.
Correct.
Okay,
Yep.
so we didn't waive any of that.
Right.
You know,
Ultimately, the tally is still going on some of the interest and penalties, so at the end, that'll be part of the payment. Some of these numbers are approximate given that now, but yes. Absolutely.
okay,
All right, all in favor?
aye.
Matter passes 4-0. No further items on the agenda for new business for me. I don't know if any of the board members have anything.
Yeah, we do. As you know, the last meetings we talked about the UTEP, we also talked about information that we learned Rochester and whatever ideas are doing around pilots and UTEP and the process for that. Our last meeting, we said, that we were going to follow up, with, the nomics, to find out kind of what they did with Rochester, what the process was, get some more information, from them. So, Stephanie and I, yesterday, had a, virtual call, with Tina, from their company. What basically we learned is that they did do a school child litigation study. Helped to kind of develop with them the various multipliers for the projects based upon, I guess, their community need. And in that, coming up with a system that one developed those multipliers, as well as also incorporating soft and hard cost into the model. And then every 3 to 5 years, they kind of recalibrate what that is, right? And on it. Of course, using the current year's enrollment, every time when they do it, they use that current year's enrollment to kind of really start that process. And then what they said was really interesting is that also now Rochester has whatever it is that they've come up with now becomes part of their village code. Says that, and they also incorporate kind of they did also a 10-year look back kind of at some of the existing projects that they have. And what we talked about with her, she said talked about trends and talked about that and seeing that not many children, when you look at multiple family kind of projects, it's not really you're not seeing a whole lot of children because now folks are not allowed to having a whole lot of children. And we said that was probably consistent with the way, in terms of what was happening with enrollment, and generally in school. We also talked about this year, they also have done some economic impact studies too around that. And then we try to figure out a little bit. We know that Stores and Associates has been doing some impact analysis stuff with us as well. Where we left off was that they're going to put together a proposal to send to us for the school child mitigation kind of a study on it. And then even potentially a look back study and look back for us to select 3 kind of our existing pilots. And recommending that maybe they be affordable, mixed use, and market rate, so that they could also look at those and then kind of give us an analysis kind of on it. So that's where we are. So we said that we would wait for the kind of what proposal, that she's gonna offer to us, and then.
In your conversation with Portchester, I mean, did they speak about the enrollment rates of their school district? Had they seen increasing or decreasing? Because I know in all of the conversations we always have about pilots is the impact and the number of kids it's going to bring to the school district. And based on the school district's own analysis that they've shared as part of their restructuring of the district in K through 8, elementary, closing down schools, whatever they're doing, they're predicting a decrease, a continued decrease in the enrollment of their schools. And it doesn't seem like they're taking into consideration the building that's happening in Mount Vernon. So I would really love to see how we could have more conversations with the school district and kind of see how they've made their analysis based on their trends of decreasing, because we're building, right? We're looking to build. And as we're building and as they're restructuring, and I know it's not directly tied to it, but it is in a way, right? Because all of this is about the impact on schools and how schools are being impacted. And I'm just going to say what I say, the school district and the city have not historically worked well together. And there's been, this historic animus between the two entities, which I think is quite foolish because at the end of the day, we're one tax base and we're one city, and we're serving all of the same people. And there has not been a coordination. The schools restructure without input from the city. And then when the city builds, then the school is like, oh, well, you're going to impact the schools because you're building in these neighborhoods where it's going to cause it to be overcrowded. And so I think as we've been doing the comprehensive land use plan, that we have even had some of those meetings at the schools. We've invited the schools to come in and be a part of that conversation. But as Mount Vernon is looking to grow and we're looking to do more transit-oriented development, and, that there needs to be kind of greater and deeper conversations with the schools, not just about whether they're mixed income, but even on the market rate, right? Because we're building and hopefully the school district will be prepared to receive more kids in a community that's going to be growing. So, all of these things are kind of up for conversation as we move forward.
So I think that to start off with the initial question, I'm not sure, I don't remember exactly what Portchester said about their enrollment. I don't remember it being that there was this kind of alarming concern around the enrollment and the impact that their pilots kind of had on it. However, their model was different. Their model is completely different, right? Than ours. And two, we've been dealing with kind of the shelter rent kind of a process. They have a different process that seemingly actually has a greater benefit to them. So I think that's number two is I think that we've determined that our model, what we've been doing, like it doesn't work, and we need to kind of reconfigure, which we've been talking about since the very beginning, right? But however, most of our conversation has been internal to us and to the city, to the school district, so on. I think that by engaging urbanomics into this, it will help to give a third voice to this, and probably a voice that's outside looking in too, and help to really answer some of those questions.
Mhm.
Because, right, I think a part of that would be what is happening with just the trend of enrollment, period, but also to some of the questions earlier that came up around, well, the multipliers and how do you determine the multipliers, right? And is it one particular multiplier, or is it a multiplier that is set for affordable? One is set for market rate and one is set for mixed use, right? I think all of that will come out of that because based upon ours, just several conversations, one with Portchester and two with Tina, it's clear that The enrollment is changing. And the trends of enrollment, of course, are changing. But that the way in which we determine what is the actual economic impact to the city is unique to that city and the elements around the city, right? And the project and all of that. And ensuring some of the things that we've not done in the past, which is making sure that we have some clear clawback kind of conditions. That will help, right? When they talk about this whole thing about them paying soft and hard cost and making sure that things that normally we kind of take with the burden for, actually the developer takes the burden for on. I think that's why I think that this will be beneficial for us to at least engage them, because, and also we even talked about, well, what is Victoria doing stores, right? And what they would be doing and how's it different, or how does it mesh together, right? In that. To your point about collaboration with the school district, I think that by moving forward with this and also engaging the school district, probably having conversations with them about the fact that we are talking about urbanomics, and that they said that they also had a study, I think, that had been done previous. That will help us to kind of be all on the same page, right? And collaboratively get to a place that it becomes truly beneficial. Here's what I hear, right? When I'm out and folks are talking, folks don't understand pilots.
No.
Right? And I don't know too sure if some of the people involved understand them fully, right? Because right. And so,
Or if people want
Right.
people to really understand what they are in the first place.
well, but I
Right.
think that
Misinformation is real. Right.
yeah, and I think, because everybody's like, well, they just need to kind of completely go away. Well, that could be an option. I don't know if that's the best option for the city, but I know, but I do know that what we are doing right now is the best option for the city, right? So we gotta figure out, so we gotta get all of the data to figure out what it is that we, in order to make that determination going forward, so that from an economic standpoint, we have a model that works.
I think we did have a demographic study done. It shows enrollment is going to continue to fall. It fell 20% last decade. Is going to continue to fall at least through 2033. So I think the capacity is there to accommodate more bodies. It's not like we have to build a new school building, right? Which would be a cost that would have to be factored in. So we don't have to do that. There's enough space. I think getting a multiplier that is tighter, it's more accurate, is better, and we can do that. Because right now, I think the big concern is if a pilot ends up hurting the school district, that's the concern. And so if you look at some of the pilots that are out now, some of the buildings, you can predict, whether it's hurting the school district financially, because you look at the local cost to educate a student, strip out state and federal aid, you look at the local cost, you look at the number of kids who are living in that building, and you look at the amount of pilot payment that's made. And if it's not enough to cover the local cost to educate those kids, that gap has to be made up somewhere. And so right now, there are pilots that are in that position. So the amount that's being paid to the school district doesn't cover the local cost to educate those students. So that's what we want to avoid going forward, that pilots granted through the IDA don't financially hurt the school district. So, and the best way to do that is to get better at predicting the number of kids who will be in those buildings.
Right.
And so I think this urbanomics study can really go a long way to do that. And I think it's important to be conservative, right? You don't want to push the boundaries and be aggressive and predict too few, because then you're left to have to fall back money from somebody. You don't want to do that. That's an indelicate situation. You don't want to be in that adversarial position. So.
Right, and which is one of the things too that talked about on it, which is why we said that not only looking at the school child mitigation study, but looking at the look back, right, helps us because it will also help to answer some of those questions that we also had about the kind of the existing models. Not that we can go back, because I said, yeah, we could do it. It's really just for us to get information to be able to say, okay, now we definitely know what we thought we knew, right? Because we can't go back and change them now because the ones that were done just don't have anything in there for us to do that.
But, I mean, and I think the ones.
And we didn't do it.
There's more people who might not do this.
And that's what I want to, and I want to be very, very, very clear. And I know when this board was compromised, comprised, not compromised,
Not
but
compromised.
comprised in 2020. That's one of the things that we really said from the very beginning, right? We're going to expand this board, but we wanted to start it out with those of us who were here and who were taxpayers, right? Because we knew that we would make the best decisions and more conservative decisions and drill down deeper maybe than others did. We would have more questions. And so that was our focus from the beginning. And like you said, we want to make sure that we get the multiplier tight, because if we're saying we want to use a certain multiplier because these number of kids are going to come into this building, I want to make sure that we're not overestimating it and making it difficult. And like you said, at the same time, we want to make sure that we're not underestimating it. We want to find something reasonable. And that's why I was asking, if we're saying that the numbers are going to decrease going forward, then, how can we make multipliers higher or more, aggressive if we know that the trend is going in the opposite way. So, look, a study is always good because it helps us to make database decisions, and database decisions are always going to be the best decisions, not based on, well, I think or I feel. And the other thing that I've said before, and Mr. McDonough, Dr. McDonough, really, this is something that I would love to see you take back to the school board, because I think it is very important. And it is something that we need to look at. So, as students are enrolling, especially transfers, I think that the information that the school district needs to start collecting on transfer students, whether it's from Westchester communities or from New York City communities, is critical.
Yeah.
I do not know if we're collecting data. And we continue to talk about the percentage and the growing number or the growing percentage of special education students that are coming to our community. And I believe that they're not just homeborn, homegrown. I know and I believe with a deep level of certainty.
I like that one.
that there are a lot of transfers coming into our community from not just Westchester communities, but New York City as well, with children who have high needs, right? Whether they're coming in on Section 8 vouchers or continuum vouchers. We know that New York City, and I don't want to say the word dumping because we don't dump people, but New York City has been doing that through their SOTA program. And we have gone back through our building department and we are pulling that information because it is a practice that they had kind of reduced, but they started coming back up again. And that's where they pay the rent for a family for 1 or 2 years to a landlord and move that family here. And so recently we've gotten families who are coming into the mayor's office with 4 or 5 children saying, I'm living in a slum apartment. We're struggling, and the landlord's not being responsive, and they've already received 1 year or 2 worth of rent. So for the school district to kind of begin to track where transfers and kind of some of the new enrollments are coming from is going to be very important and very informative in us being able to stand up and hold some of our surrounding communities accountable also for offloading folks who they don't want to deal with.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's a good point. The southern border in particular is very fluid. And so you can get fluctuations in enrollment. Enrollment is a tricky topic because remember, funding is also related to enrollment. So that means it's vulnerable to manipulation. right? If you want to report higher enrollment to keep funding at a certain level, then that can alter what you're reporting. There's certainly been problems with school districts around the country doing that. That's one of the inherent problems with having aid distributed that way. So I hear what you're saying. I think getting better at doing that is something we're trying to do. But we do see those numbers change in buildings. You can see numbers change, which makes it kind of a moving target. And also, as you said, with special education, that drives up the local cost per pupil. And it's a real problem. For me, the long-term goal is to change the perception of the school district. So parents move into the community and don't want to, and want to give it a shot. Right now, you have parents in market rate buildings. You can afford to send your kids elsewhere, you're sending your kids elsewhere. That's not good. So.
And that's important, so we can build, and we do have plans to build quite, more market rate housing.
Yeah.
Right, as we go forward. And we want to be able to hold on to those families, and we want to be able to bring them. But again, as I've come to different town hall meetings for the school district, for the restructuring, we found out that Mount Vernon's student attrition rate, I guess, is higher
Yeah.
than our surrounding communities, I think, including New York City, right? So we have to really, really drill down into all of that. And I think one of the biggest vulnerabilities, because as we said, when it comes to our special education students, and we're not picking on special education students, right? But the cost of educating special education or special needs students is higher, whether it's transportation, whether it's the additional staffing in the classrooms. But that's money that's like Title I money that comes from federal entities. And with the dissolution of the Federal Department of Education, those are billions of dollars that are not going to come to the states. And that's millions of dollars that's not going to come from the state to the local entities. And so, we're going to have to be much more protective on every level. And I think that is why it is so critical for the city and the school district to be at the table more, right? When I see Yonkers, we understand it's one school district, it's run and organized by the mayor. I'm not looking for that. Mount Vernon has enough challenges where this administration is not looking to take on the schools and their challenges, but communities are going to be more successful fighting on the state level when the electeds from the school district and from the city are able to go up to Albany together and advocate. When we do it separately, we're not going to be successful.
I agree. I mean, look, so I look at the youth bureau, and there's such a natural tie-in with school district. So I agree. I think there needs to be far more collaboration, and everybody benefits when we collaborate. Early intervention and preschool are where my heart is, and that's how you change things long term. And that's a target that's going to get hurt by what's going on in the federal government. A lot of the funding for early intervention funds through the federal government to the state to provide. So there's already massive shortages in the provider community, and this is not going to help, which just hurts kids long term.
And I come from an early education. I've 15 years with the YMCA, right? The largest provider of early intervention services in the country, the largest provider of childcare in the country, and early childhood education. So I get it. And after literally fresh in from Washington, D.C. last night and on Capitol Hill for the last 5 or 6 days and speaking with our federal electeds and working with the National League of Cities for the past few days, and everything, the breakneck speed in which things are happening in Washington, we have to come together and come together quickly, right? Else we, as a community, are not going to be ready to even manage the changes that are coming. Some will come and some are threatened to come, but either way, we have to be prepared. So,
It all ties together. Because at the end of the day, if less funding comes in to the school district from the state and the federal government, the local responsibility and cost to the cost is going to go up.
Mhm.
If the pilots are, not, if the multiplier is not right and the pilots are not, structured in a way in which it meets the local cost, then again, an additional gap is going to be created.
Mhm.
It's simple. It's not this happens over here and that it doesn't affect over here. It absolutely ties in all together. It's circular, it's continuing and all of that, especially in communities like Mount Vernon that have a high percentage of students who may very well have special needs for education, right? And has a very high, very large population in a very dense location. So we gotta be real about
Mhm.
that. And you know, while before we've had the luxury of also counting on our state and federal partners, that doesn't seem to be where we're gonna be in the next year, 2, 3, 4, 5,
Right,
period.
right.
So, you know, collaboration, critical kind of thinking, clear analysis of data that helps us to really know where we are, where we've been, and where we need to go is how we have to kind of unpack all of this and make very, very sound decisions. And we have to start also doing it, you know, making these quick kind of snap decisions and emotional ones
Mhm.
around it because of who's involved,
Mhm.
right, in it, and realize that, at the end of the day, you know, what's happening nationally, it tells us that we need to be ahead of the game. So we got to start preparing now, even though it hasn't happened. We ought to be operating as if it has,
It has happened.
right? So that we can be prepared to deal with it. Because like, you know, we talked about youth bureaus. So yeah, so if there's something that the school district cannot provide in the service, then maybe the city can provide. But the city won't be able to provide it if the city doesn't have the resources to do it. And same vice versa. If something that the city uses, the school district not gonna be able to do it. We don't have kind of the resources to kind of do it. I look at, you know, some of the things that like, we know, big and right, New York City, and the way in which, and again, like you said, the structure is different because it all reports into the city. But there's ways in which they continue to kind of make sure that there's the CBOs that are doing stuff that are helping school district. The school is providing kind of locations and places for CBOs to do what they need to do. That whole community school model kind of thing works. When you can share resources and increase communication.
Well, look, we have 3 school buildings that are gonna be closing in September. Those, we certainly don't want those sites to just fall into being eyesores. So we have to think carefully about how we're gonna redeploy those land resources to the betterment of everyone in the community. Demographics show that enrollment is gonna continue to fall. We could have closed more than 3 buildings, right? Realistically, you want your buildings close to working at
Full
maximum.
capacity.
Right.
Mhm.
We're nowhere near that.
Mhm.
So we need to now think strategically. It was unfortunate that things happened the way they did, but going forward, we need to think next year and the year after and the year after, 5, 10, 15 years out. How do we take buildings offline rationally? Get the geography carefully and dovetail that with the movements of the IDA. So that it makes sense for the community, and then how do we redeploy those land resources so that we all benefit and get better at thinking on our own, because we can't depend on outside partners as much. Right?
And
So,
And I appreciate, and again, for the record, I appreciate some of the questions that you've raised, because they've been the same questions when we talked about how the decisions were made, right? And we talked about whether it was enrollment, whether it was amount of, first and second tier repairs that needed to be done, how those things were being done, right? Because it felt for me like it was a moving target. And I think it's felt like that for some other people. Look, we know that enrollment is declining in schools. We know that people are having less children, we know that some people are choosing, my daughter's not having any, right? And she's 33, and I think 90% of her friends have no children, and at least 50% of them are choosing not to have any. Right? And so we see that there is a real trend. And we see that even people in their 30s, when they move into a 2-bedroom apartment, they're looking for 2-bedroom apartments with 2 bathrooms because it's more of a roommate situation as opposed to I'm moving to get this 2-bedroom apartment because I'm choosing to have children later. And so those are decisions that we're making even on the planning side as to how we design buildings. And yes, we might increase the number of 2 bedrooms because housing has become so expensive. It is the number one issue that we are discussing at the U.S. Conference of Mayors. It is the number one thing that we're discussing at the National League of Cities is affordability. And it's the same discussion we're having all across the country. And so we know that communities are changing, demographics are changing, lifestyle habits are changing. And so we have to prepare for that in our planning decisions, in the school district's decisions, and we'll be able to make much better decisions if we're working together. And I'm going to end with this, in the words of our former mayor, Ernest D. Davis, and everyone around this table who is familiar with him will probably know what I'm getting ready to say, that we are inextricably intertwined, right? You're inextricably intertwined. And so as much as we try and kind of untwine ourselves, we can't, because the levers, if you push one lever, it's going to impact another lever automatically. And so let's work together. Look forward to that. Thank you, Comptroller Morton and Assessor Vanderpool for going over to Portchester and having that conversation. And let's look to continue to find solutions that are going to help us to make the best decisions for our community.
Motion to adjourn?
Seconded.
Move to adjourn.
All in favor? Aye. Adjourn at 11:22.